Hi everyone. I'm here in my art room at home because I can't be in the art room at school. I wish I could, but I'm trying to work with what I can. So I have a little table set up with some art supplies, and today I'd like for us to draw robots together. So with this lesson, I included a link to my Pinterest page, which has lots of robot pictures for you to look at if you want ideas. If you don't, you can just draw a robot from your imagination, which is a lot of fun too. So once you have a look at those robots, go ahead and grab some paper, a pencil, an eraser, and either markers, crayons, or paints, something to color it with. All right, we'll get started soon. Okay, we're ready to start our robot project, and here are two examples of robots that I've made. As you can see, this one has a horizon line, so if you wanted to color it, you could have a sky and a ground or a wall and a floor. I haven't colored that one yet. This one has a very busy background that I painted with watercolors, and I just filled it with different squares and rectangles. And you can see when you have a busy background, sometimes that hides your robot in your picture, so you want to be careful of what kind of background you choose. So for today's work, we're going to need some sheets of white paper. I stacked mine, a few sheets of copy paper. My table's already dirty, but if you were going to be using Sharpie, you would want to make sure you have something to protect your table underneath your paper, or stack a few sheets. You could put newspaper or something to protect it, like a piece of cardboard, something like that. We're going to need an eraser today, pencil, a Sharpie if you have one. If you don't have a Sharpie, you can always use black colored pencil perhaps, or even black crayon. So we're going to get started now. We're going to be making our robots from geometric shapes. So geometric shapes are the shapes that you know the names of. For example, you've learned about shapes since preschool: squares, triangles, rectangles, half circles, ovals. All of those shapes are called geometric shapes. So we're going to use those and the examples of robots that I will include with this lesson on my Pinterest page, so you can look at those for ideas. All right, so I'm going to start at the top of my paper with my robot's head, and I'm going to choose a half circle for that. I'm going to leave a little bit of space at the top for maybe an antenna or something. So I'm going to start with a half circle, and I want you to make sure you remember to sketch light until it's right, because when you sketch lightly, it's so much easier to erase. So I've got a half circle there for the head. Now I'm going to make a little rectangle for the neck. So here's my neck. And next I'm going to do the body, and the body is going to be a rectangle as well. So you can make these from your imaginations, or you could look at the ideas on my Pinterest page. I have lots of robot pictures that you could look at for ideas. When I'm sketching, I want to make sure that I'm drawing lightly. If I have a mistake, I can erase it pretty easily if I draw lightly. Okay. Now I want to think about the arms and legs. I want to use some more geometric shapes. So I'm thinking of perhaps using half circles right here to start where my arms might come out. Okay. And then I was thinking maybe I would use some rectangles. So it depends on how I want my arm to come out. So let's say I want this arm to come out this way. That's a rectangle here. And then I'm going to add another rectangle right here. And that means this arm's going to be going up. Maybe it could be holding something. and maybe this arm will be coming out. So I'm going to have a rectangle kind of on a diagonal. These two lines are called parallel lines because they're doing the same thing. And I'm going to give it a straight edge like a rectangle edge. And then I'm going to make another rectangle come down right here. Lots of ways you can do hands. You could make fingers, you could have claws, you could not have any hands. You can choose what kind of hands that you want to have. I was thinking of maybe using a half circle again on this hand and then mimic lining it like that and then putting lines across. Kind of looks like a little claw hand, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. So half circle, mimic line it on the inside there, and then connect those two lines there. Now I have to decide, how do I want to make the legs? I'm going to make the legs using some skinny tall rectangles like that. And then for a knee, I'm going to use a circle. And I'm going to use another skinny tall rectangle. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So a skinny tall rectangle about the same size, big circle knee, skinny tall rectangle, and my robot's starting to fill my paper up. You can see I've made it pretty big, so it fills up most of the paper. I do have a little room there if I want to make an antenna or something. I'm going to make some feet now. Again, I'm going to go with some half circles. Lots of half circles on my robot today. There are some shapes I haven't used yet. I haven't used the triangle yet. So I think I'm going to make an antenna at the very top of his head with a triangle. And maybe a little circle that looks like a party hat, but that's a light. And I'm also going to do some antennas on the side of his head. I'm going to make rectangles on each side, and then a smaller one and a smaller one. Kind of looks like it's growing out of his head. More lights. Okay. So now I've got the main body of my robot. I want to do the details next. So the details might be your facial features. How does your robot see? Does it have a mouth? That sort of thing. I'm going to add a mouth on my robot that kind of looks like it's part of the robot's kind of like a helmet mouth here. It's going to look like it's something that can maybe open or close. And then for the eyes, I'm going to use two circles with circles inside. And then I thought maybe for a nose, you don't have to make a nose, but sometimes I like to do just a little rectangle. Okay. Now usually on robots there are buttons and knobs and stuff in the center of the belly. So you could decide, making different shapes again that you find that you know the names of, geometric shapes here. Make some little triangles since I don't have a lot of triangles yet. Okay, and then I'm going to fill these with different buttons and knobs. I'm going to just do mimic lines in there. And then what I'd like to do is on the arms and legs, I want to use some repeated lines. Those are called patterns. So I have this curve here from the shoulder, and if I repeat that over and over again, that creates a pattern. That'll be fun to color. It's a good detail. In the arm here, I could just make straight lines. Again, that's a pattern, a line pattern, repeating that. And I could also make patterns in the legs, little lines like that. Okay, when your robot is finished, then you would want to Sharpie it. So remember, Sharpies are permanent markers. If you are using a Sharpie, you always have to be really careful and pay attention to what you're doing. And you're just going to trace over your lines carefully. Okay, when you're done with the Sharpie, you want to take your eraser and erase any extra pencil marks that might still be showing. I call this cleaning up your art because it gets rid of all those pencil marks that kind of make your art look a little messy right now, because it's hard to trace exactly on your pencil lines. When you're done erasing, you want to decide how you want to color your artwork. Do you want to use crayons, colored pencils, markers, or even paint? On my first two, I colored my robots with markers and painted the background. With this thin kind of paper, it's a little hard to paint on just because it starts to buckle a little bit, but it's entirely possible. When you color with markers, it's fun to color in the lines. So first I outline the shape and then I fill it in. And that helps me get a really neat look and get all my white spots covered. So I like to color with markers. It's almost like filling in a coloring worksheet. All right, when you're done coloring, you can decide whether you want to fill in your background or not. Remember, if you choose to do a horizon line bumps and jumps behind your robot. So you would choose where to put the line. And when you run into something, you have to bump into it, jump over it, bump into it, jump over it. Horizon lines always go behind things. So I'm going to Sharpie that in now. And if you want to paint that in, you can. You could paint in your sky and your ground. You could give your robot a name. If you don't want to do that, you could just sign your work down here. And you're finished with your robot. I hope you had fun. See you next time.